going. I want to see more maps, I want to see more rounds, I want to see more gunfights, because this is turning into an absolute classic right now.
I did wonder what word was going to follow there. Slobberknocker was a word that a few were confused by. It's a big moment popularized in WWE. We tried to avoid using it, as there is a caster from the UK called Demo that loves using it. And we tried to avoid repeating his words as much as we can. Let's get into this ban phase though. Maverick, the first one to come out for G2. I wonder if we see BDS bring out that Wamai ban. We mentioned earlier on that we've seen it all season long from them. Didn't see it on Villa. Maybe this is the time for it to make a return.
They used the Wamai sparingly themselves. Virtue used it consistently against them, and I don't think you could really paint a picture where, you know, Wamai was necessarily the difference in that last matchup on Villa, but he certainly has an impact on any round that he is available. Now, Capitao coming in as the BDS ban would suggest Wamai follows, but no, they've gone for the mirror, so we'll have the Wamai there again, I would imagine. I can't see G2 taking him out of the mix.
There were a couple of rounds on that last map, and admittedly this was more on G2's defense, where they were relying quite a lot on having the Wamai in place. I remember the round when we had Shaiko trying to push along with Bride into Statuary, trying to go for a plant, but they couldn't remove the deployable shield that was sat behind the bomb chassis because they ran out of utility. So almost showing the reason why they ban it away is it comes back to bite them themselves when they're the ones on the attack. As you say, leaving it through. Interesting pick, given they start out on the attack. Hibana's going to make it through this time. Surprised to see that it's not Shaiko sticking on that one. It's going to be Bride playing it in the more supportive style that we commonly associate Hibana with.
Well, Des, we head into map number 2. G2 now have themselves a 2-0 lead in terms of the maps. BDS, there is no more room for error now from the French team. They have to come through and win 3 consecutively. Famously, it has been the roster of G2 or previously Penta that we have seen complete those reverse sweeps, but question is, can BDS do it against them now? And Oregon is going to have to be the starting point for it. I'm excited. I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm sure that you all are at home as well. And unfortunately, the current situation, we don't have a live audience, but we can still have an amazing shared experience between us all. Get excited, get in the chat, get pumped, and get ready for a huge matchup.
Get on Twitter as well. #6Major. You might get your tweet up there. We'll make sure we're commenting on a few of those as they flash up on the screen too. Round number 1, starting on the top floor. One of those ones that I love seeing a mute brought along to. Very easy to deny intel on the top floor. You've got a couple of doors you need to stick those drones in. One up towards attic, and generally you can make things a bit of a headache for the attackers. Expecting to see BDS put a lot of focus in towards attic and master bedroom, meet in the middle of trophy, and then try and go through and execute very commonly through something like wardrobe. But I think a lot of teams are now getting very wise to that being the go-to play. Maybe we're going to see a little bit of difference in this game today, given the importance of it. The best of 5 in a grand final of a major.
Early aggression from Shaiko there. I'm not sure if he had a little bit of information that somebody was playing in and around the meeting kitchen area, so he just took a few pot shots through the soft wall there from the rear stage door, but not to any major success. We can see Virtue is out on that Valkyrie. Cams are all in place. Information being fed back in, and information really is going to be key for G2 here on the defense of Oregon. Now, interesting, as you said, there's quite a strong downstairs presence on that ground floor from G2 this time around. BDS is going to be heading over with Rafale towards that double window to begin with, diffuser in hand, and somewhat of a different attacking push here than we might usually see.
I'm so perplexed because G2 initially had 2 or 3 players playing out towards dining and in towards small tower, and I was like, why? And I guess it kind of makes sense now that now that BDS have pushed all their players out to small tower to start their attack. But it's unconventional to see a purely white stairs and big window take. It's much more common to go through master bedroom and put some pressure in from trophy side. But for BDS, it looks like their whole focus is on the west. It has been a big rotate. We are 90 seconds in the round and still looking to find some control. This could be interesting. It's not something I've seen before.
We can see angles are being held there by the defenders, and it's a tentative start, just as we saw Villa finish off, really. Neither of these two teams wanting to come in and take that early disadvantage of losing out on the entry battle. And Citizen, he's going to hold his angle there just to try and continue challenging. Right now, the Roma's doing a good job of wasting time here. 2 minutes gone so far, and no real progress into the map from BDS so far. They've opened up a couple of vertical angles. They're heading into meeting. They will be challenged there, and Shield Ranchiro, however, alive to the danger. Headshot onto Kanto. That will be the Jaeger gone. We've also got serious damage taken by Uno as well. There are HP and operators missing as Citizen comes in with a big double kill there, shutting down Shaco and Ranchiro. And that now leaves us in a quick swing, 4 versus 3 in favour of G2.
I get the feeling they've taken small tower because maybe there was a hold coming inside a security or inside a kitchen. A couple of mute jammers might be down there, so the focus has to be in clearing them out lest you get C4'd. Bit of a duel at the opening door, though, and it's Bride picking up Citizen. Could have found a third for himself. Not to be the case. 3 versus 2 for G2. 15 seconds remaining, and we know how much damage this clock can do to teams, Ace.
We certainly do. It is ticking down. 8 seconds left to go. In comes a kill. Uno onto Bride. 1 versus 3 for Rafal now. And he's going to watch this clock tick away. He gets himself a meaningless headshot onto Virtue. Very nice it was indeed, but not enough to take the round away from G2. And they open things up with a big defensive start on Oregon. But not too much of a surprise there, Des. I'm sure BDS won't be worried by that. They are certainly well in the fight here. Oregon has been less defender-sided as the season has gone on, but those new maps, it always takes a little bit of time to figure out those different attacks, and especially there with BDS coming in, as you called it, a little bit unconventional, we can expect that, you know, maybe they're not going to have immediate success with that.
It was a bit confusing to see it, admittedly. Like, they didn't really have any substance to the attack there outside of let's look through big window and wait for our chance to strike. And it was a bit too simple for G2 playing downstairs, sat at the top of the freezer stairs or inside a security, waiting for someone to peel out to then bring them down. So a bit of a write-off round, I say. Probably didn't go the way that BDS ever envisioned. It was a very null round coming out of them. We get to go downstairs. This one a bit more simple, I think it's fair to say. You've only really got 3 ways you can come from. You come from the north, you come from freezer down towards the southwest, or you come from inside of laundry. Normally a combo of those is used to make sure that you have enough angles to open things up to keep the other team guessing, because as we alluded to back on Villa, teams that tend to go one-dimensional on their attacks never tend to succeed.
They don't, and generally speaking, the defenders, they're going to try to hold 2 key areas, and that will be 1 man in freezer to shut down the approach. We're seeing it right now on screen. Thank you very much. Through downstairs, down there, they've got a hatch above them as well, and it's just preventing access to that area because it can be deadly if the attackers manage to get themselves in there. And then the rest of the focus for the defense is going to be towards the top of your screen there, and that is towards rear stage and bunker. So thank you very much once again to our wonderful observers, just showing us those defenders all grouping around that area. A lot of utility expended there, and between those 2 areas you can shut down all 3 of those angles of aggression from the attackers. But Shaco, he's very quickly got himself into bunker and got some good control of that. That's going to be a good beachhead for BDS here.
Looks like the whole thing got reinforced pretty quickly as well. Supply, although it had a rotation hole initially, then got later reinforced out. So Shaco was very free to move down towards the bottom of L and look to cause some damage. They're also able to get electric open here. Opens a nice angle into the northwest corner of Supply. So it starts to restrict what the defenders can do here. And it's one of the things that I love about Oregon is every angle that you open up or every wall that gets open can cut off so much ground control for the defenders, essentially. You can cut this map now like a cheesecake. Slice it in half cleanly down the middle. That top side of the map is now, top side of the bottom floor, sorry, is now cleared out for the defenders. They can't play there. If you get supply wall open, leading in all the way through towards the freezer doorway, that's another slice taken apart. It's like you're dicing up a fine cake and just saying, no, you can't have that piece. This one's ours.
As if my mouth wasn't watering enough to begin with, Des. You have to come out with the cheesecake talk. I love a good cheesecake. And right now, it is certainly adding more and more flavour to this matchup that we have in front of us. BDS versus G2 here in the EU Major Final. And they are going at it. We saw all 15 rounds on Villa. And right now, BDS, they're going to be looking to take the first attacking round. Virtue very lucky to escape with his life there as a nade rains over and will take about 80 to 85 of his hit points away. He is now 1 bullet away from death on the bandit, and it's only a nade that will take the rest of them from Ranchiro. Beautiful headshot from Elems there will shut down Citizen, but G2 fight back in the form of Kanto, but Shaiko says not today. This round is ours. They want to level things up immediately, and Uno now finds himself 1 versus 4. Shaiko seriously low health, but Bride, he manages to get himself in on the Hibana and start getting that diffuser down. Can Uno find 1? No, his shots just don't seem to land as Rafal takes full advantage, takes the round for BDS, and that is a much better attack from the French team than we saw in round 1.
Very solid, given it was all one-dimensional. We spoke around these angles of attack and how coming in one direction makes it a little bit simple for the defenders. C4s, smoke canisters, whatever else you've got. Just throw the kitchen sink at the attackers as they're trying to push their way in. Here it was simply gunfights being won out by BDS. Sorry, they even had the small Habana hole opened up onto the supply wall to help a little bit, but no one could push through. Just a simple overpowering statement there coming out of BDS that they are here to play. And that looks much more normal compared to what we've seen out of them before.
Going to be heading down to Laundry once again in round 3. And obviously the question that always follows when a defensive team has lost the site is, what can they do differently? What didn't work there? What adaptation do they need to work on? And for me, I think a little bit of it does, I don't know if you'd agree with me, is holding on to bunker. Shaiko got in there very, very quickly. They got the Habana opening the wall. Brede got the wall into electric, opened up. It forced the men away from pillar area because then there's an angle, a line of sight onto them. So Citizen on the Legion had to drop further back in towards sight. And it just made it extremely difficult for G2 to hold any sort of high line. And really, BDS had all the space that they needed then to push from.
I would love to know what it came down to in all of this. And the fact there are 3 shields on the side of G2 maybe screams that in the last round, I can't say I checked. Maybe they didn't have enough shields available. They needed them in other locations and said, you know what? Abandon ship. Leave L. Let them have control of it if we need to. This time round, they are definitely looking to stick it out. And Pengu's playing here on the smoke. Very commonly, you're going to see those smoke canisters used. Against normal convention, they're used quite early to try and waste time. And in that last round, the execute came out of BDS in about the 55-second mark. They had a lot of time to play with. If Pengu can sit here and burn through an extra 60 seconds, maybe 90 seconds or so, this round could be an awful lot easier for G2 when it comes down to BDS's execute, this time round at a much slower time. Going to get rid of both of those ADSs in no time, mind you. Only one remaining now, tucked in the back corner by Pengu.
It's been quite an interesting defense in the LATAM region this day. We've had MIBR coming in with Cyber, bringing a Tachanka, and it's been the first real competitively viable use of Tachanka that we have seen. And he holds down this bunker door. He puts a deployable shield on the corner you can see in front of us where that yellow gas is just dissipating. Puts a shield there, puts the turret behind it, and just completely locks it down. Teams have no idea how to push into it. Does a very, very good job, but it just shows the way that teams are thinking at this pro level about how to hold on to these key critical areas, and bunker so important to this defense. This is very cheeky. Pengu just holding a tight line here. Will he be flashed out? Yes, that could be essential. Shaiko moves in, gets the kill, but Virtue trades it right back out, and once again we have kills bouncing back and forward. BDS coming out on top though. 4 versus 3 as we hit the halfway mark.
Right, explosion there inside a blue bunker. Neither team wanted to stay there for much longer. Pengu being very cheeky and very aggressive with that angle he was sat on as well, right against the wall, right next to the door, ready with that shotgun. Flashed out, can do nothing about it. That gives some more control over to BDS. But time, look at that. 1 minute and 10 seconds left. Last time around it was 2 minutes and 30, and they had this level of control. Admittedly, no smoke canisters on side this time to help delay when the execute does come through, but BDS have been slowed down. It's now on G2 to waste even more time. Kanto holding inside a boiler is going to be a massive part of that.
Just holding on to that angle from pillar for the time being. Renshiro takes a little tickle of a shot there with a few HP down. Kanto gets a massive kill onto LMs. They really did not need pressure coming in from the rear stage stairs right now. And the Jaeger does his job and shuts the man down. 3 versus 3. All the pressure now is mounting from that bunker and electric side. And as long as G2 are aware of that, all guns can be trained in that direction, and it's not going to make it easy for BDS. Kanto just coming out with a big pre-fire there. Out comes the ping as well. The information is all on the side of G2, and with 15 seconds on the clock, this is going to be a tough take for BDS. Out comes the aggression, and Brede shuts down Kanto. That could be the key. That could be the one that prizes this padlock off the defense, but 8 seconds left to go, and BDS, they need to make a move right now. Brede, he's getting the diffuser down. Citizen shut down. The cover is good from Rafal, and that now leaves us 1 versus 3. Shut down from BDS, and they will take another round in Laundry. That is a tough sight for G2 to hold.
BDS has showed up in map 2 when it comes down to the gunning so far. That was the big war into Kanto inside a boiler. Excuse me. The big war inside a boiler, really removing Kanto was the big one, because if he'd held on there and even found a single kill, that would have put BDS down to 2 men left alive. One's got a plant, one has got a cover. You cannot protect every single angle. Really good execute coming out of BDS with a hint of favor, I suppose, being given that they couldn't find those critical kills later into the route. The G2 couldn't find the critical kills later into the round, sorry. 2-1. That's 2 attacking rounds for BDS. This has not been a bad start to Oregon.
Essential and explosive push from Breeder, as you say there. BDS just recognising that danger. Kanto is the problem right now. We cannot get Citizen locked in place. That's what they needed ultimately. They needed to get Citizen on that Valkyrie locked in place so that they could start getting that diffuser down, because as you saw, as soon as he moved to try and challenge that plant, he was just completely taken out by Rafal on the cover. But with Kanto still in place, it made it very difficult to do that, because obviously they had another flank to watch then. So Breeder recognised that, threw himself into the breach, pushed forward on the Hibana, perfectly timed, got the kill that was essential onto Kanto. Great stuff from him.
Can we just appreciate how great our casting is? Thank you very much. Very wonderful and kind words. Sign him up for EUL. I won't comment on that one. We'll say nothing
more.
You
are too kind, bear in a chair. Thank you very much. We're just bringing the excitement and enjoyment that we naturally have watching Siege, and hopefully you guys are enjoying it just as much as we are, because this is a humdinger right now.
That magical word. It's such a boomer word. We were speaking around this yesterday.
I just love to bring out those little like British idiosyncrasies that I know like some of the viewers will be like, yeah, it's a humdinger, that's fine. And some will be like,
right,
what?
So if anyone wants to get on Google and go, define idiosyncrasies, then by all means, please do. It's beautiful, as is this round, no doubt, once it starts to heat up a little bit more. Top floor defense coming out again. G2 won this the last time round. So we had 2 rounds downstairs in which they lost both of them. This one last time round was the interesting attack coming out of BDS. And interesting, as I always say, is that magical caster word. It's the kind way, the respectful way of saying it was either genuinely interesting and brilliant, or it was very, very questionable. And I'll go with more of the questionable variety for that last attack, but they appear to be repeating it again. However, the wide swing comes out of Breeder, straight into the corridor. Kanto didn't even know he was there, didn't even get the attempt to fire back. Nice early entry kill. Now what can they do with it? Because they got held up here a lot last time in shower corridor. They got stuck upstairs on big window, couldn't really go for the execute they were looking for. Same as last time, opening up an angle into kitchen, I think just to try and force G2 back. And Citizen seems relatively happy to oblige and hold back, but I suspect he wants to get creep in here, try and cause some damage as they try and feel that their backside is safe and no one is going to approach them. He even had a fight against Breeder in the last round in this exact same position, so there's more to come from that affair, I'm sure.
Breeder keeping himself nice and safely in cover there. Virtue just being moved away by the breaching charge of Shaiko detonating beneath him and just creating a little difficulty for him to remain in that corner watching the double window. But right now, the man advantage still sits with BDS. They are on a full 500 HP across the team. We have got shots onto Virtue, shots onto Pengu, and a man down in the shape of Kanto Raketti. So not great for G2 at the minute, but what I would say for this site, Des, I don't know if you agree, the core of the defense is very difficult to shift. I've seen so many rounds held at 2 versus 5, 3 versus 5 here on this site. It's that final push in towards kids dorms and main dorms that can be extremely difficult.
Grenade tries to come into the back corner, but it's already been completely destroyed from below. Nothing more to come from that. And it's, again, like you say, the issue of normally shields get set up inside of Kid Storms, and here where we've currently got Virtue holding is the kind of stalwart defense that we see defenders go for, where they can really stage a war against those trying to plant. It's why game is often considered the place to go to. But BDS have torn a new one here against the side of G2, it feels like, and there's the final couple of kills swinging out. This one, much better, more composed, a little bit slower, admittedly, in terms of not wanting to rush forwards, but finding those oh-so-critical kills. G2 almost making it a little bit easier for BDS. And this is starting to feel like an exact reverse of the last map. G2 can't win on Supply and Laundry. They've now lost on Kidstorms the second time around. Where did G2 go? Meeting and Kitchen is going to be their attempt.
It's certainly a gamble, Des. It is risk and reward here. The risk is high. The reward will be just as much so. But BDS really impressing me so far on Oregon. They have been clinical is the best way to describe it. They have recognised every time there is a roadblock, every time that there is a barrier to the push, to the attack, to getting into those default spots. They've recognised it and they have cut it away with a surgeon's precision. Really impressive. One thing thing that I want to shout out that maybe hasn't been picked up, but I've been keeping an eye on it, and that is the play of Renshiro and Shaiko. I know we've mentioned them plenty as operators, but I'm mentioning them specifically as a duo. A number of times we've seen kills rain in from them within fractions of a second of each other, and it is just the communication and the coordination that those two are playing with right now. They are hitting G2 hard at exactly the same time, and it is really, really punishing them.
Kyle's got no fingernails left, and don't worry, my friend, because Ace hasn't got an edge of his seat left. He's been sat on it so many times now that I'm convinced it has worn down to nothing.
There's nothing there, Des. I'm resorting to standing up at this point. It's not even a choice. I'm sort of in a mid-squat at the minute.
The chair was cast aside a long time ago,
Oh, it's turned over. It's on its side. This game's far too exciting.
Flipping tables will be the next one. Just make sure your monitor stays intact, mate, because you need to be able to see the damn game. Let's see then how meeting and kitchen goes. I love the separation between these two sites. There's some teams leaning towards dining, some in towards kitchen. I can't remember the region I looked at for it. I believe it was NA or EU. We had seen 26 rounds inside of kitchen, 26 rounds inside of meeting, sorry, and 24. I say inside of kitchen. What am I on about? Inside of dining, sorry, there were 26 rounds, and inside of meeting, there were 24, or it was some variation of that. Either way, the jury's still out on which one is the most popular. Teams seem to have a lean themselves personally, but there's no established meta here that suggests one is strictly better than the other.
My vote would go to dining each time. If you've got a strong showers hold, particularly, showers into small office, then you will lock that site down, generally speaking. Meeting here, there's two big factors. Virtue is one of them. So Virtue, he's going to play himself close into that rear stage. The default plant spot is literally just behind those sandbags. Thank you very much. And that's where they need to get control of, and Virtue is going to try and shut that down. Out comes the Nitro unsuccessfully. Now, there is nobody else from G2 in meeting, so once Virtue is forced away, it becomes very difficult for them to challenge onto that plant spot. We can see Pengu's moved his way in now. Essential that he stays alive as well. As soon as meeting is empty, it's practically impossible to stop this diffuser going down, or at least extremely difficult. So right now, Virtue, he needs to waste another minute here, let me tell you that.
I saw some really cool strats coming in to execute on this site. We saw Team Secret back in the early weeks do a real big execute onto the E-split wall. LM holding the perfect angle, but cannot find the head of Virtue, and he prevails here. He's going to be the one still holding in this tight angle, just saying, no, you can't take the stage, you can't plant. We'll see if BDS can get away with it. But right now, every single one of them is stacked up on the north side in Big Tower. LM going to find Pengu. The trades come back as G2 equalize with 2, and that emboldens Shaiko. Feels he can step forward and start looking to contest. Now he's inside the stage himself. He's the star of the show. Not able to find any kills to drag this round further towards their side. It's going to rest at 4 versus 3 for G2.
Doing very well here, Virtue, just to hold on to that tough position. He is very limited in his footwork there because of the drone hole. We can see Shaiko just trying to use every inch of the map there, and you can get shots through onto the feet of the defender playing tight in that corner. So Virtue doing a great job to keep himself alive. We can see Kanto taking a long-range battle there. MPX, not the best gun in the world to be doing it, especially on low health, but he continues fighting yet. 20 seconds left to go, and what a nade from Renshiro to just clear out the troublesome Virtue. Kanto, however, continues to fight, and the pressure continues from the back. Great plays from G2. Never easy to defend that all the way from the connector at the back of meeting there. Well played, Uno. Well played, Kanto. Not the best gun in the game to hit those long-range shots, but he made it work.
It's why I love the meeting takes, and I think why I enjoy watching them more than I do a kitchen and dining take is because it almost turns the room into no man's land. There's benches, there's cabinets, there's all sorts dotted around the room to use as temporary cover, but you get players just zigzagging back and forth, trying not to get picked off as they rotate through. The defenders love playing these longer angles from the kitchen wall or inside of split on the left and right hand side. Just makes for a very fascinating round, and the reason I got so excited by that grenade wasn't so much so that, oh my god, there's a drone hole there, more that the range at which she got it to go through to actually pick Virtue off was really impressive. And it unseated that man that was at close range that was stopping them being able to push in aggressively. Not that it mattered, because G2 still found those crucial frags. A little bit one-dimensional, no one looking to play spoiler on the side of BDS. It does give G2 their second defensive round. They're still in a spot here where it could go 3-3 or even 4-2 to BDS. That would not be an ideal first half to Oregon. And dare I say, if it goes 4-2 here, we are going to be looking at a map number 4.
I would completely agree with you. I don't think that G2, as capable as they are, will be bringing it on the attack all the way back from 4-2. So this is a really important round for them now. They need to get this one shut down. They need to level this 3-all at the half. And as you said, Des, looking back to round number 5 briefly before this one starts, it is always a fun sight in meeting because the battle lines are drawn, and that's exactly what we saw there. And it's sort of like two tribes go to war, isn't it? You've got one at the top end of rear stage, you've got one at the bottom end of meeting, and it's just about who can pick up those gunfights. And Kanto coming to the fore in that round and just really closing things out. Now, G2, they need to keep better control, and it's no surprise to see Pengu bring in the clash. They've recognised that they need to hold on to rear stage, they need to hold on to bunker for even longer than they managed to achieve last time. It's that foothold that BDS are using so successfully to be able to push into sight.
It's the intel that he feeds, and some teams have been hyper aggressive in APAC and actually pushing outside into construction, at least early on, to try and spot who's coming, know that there's 3 or 4 players trying to push in. The sheer fact now that they're seeing so many drones as well as operators throwing utility in, throwing bodies forward, lets G2 know, right, the focus is on construction. What are we going to do to match it? It's pretty safe to assume that someone is then going to be pushing in from Big Tower to the north, as they're normally the 2 angles you need to secure to get control of Boiler. But even with these drones crawling around at the feet of Pengu, he doesn't care, steps into a back corner and destroys both. And they're still wasting time as Kanto is going to open up onto Rafael.
1 minute gone off the clock, and that is the sledge as well. So that's one easy way of destroying some utility gone off the board. We can see the barbed wire just being cleared out by Shaiko. He's going to look to push towards site, but he will have no joy. Clears out the deployable shield, but the reinforcement is in place, and they will have to start pushing through electric now. Citizen just playing up on the upper floor in meeting, could be challenged by Lems here, but drops himself away. I think maybe, I don't know whether there's a little bit of information for him from a cam there potentially, just letting him know that he was potentially going to be pushed by the Iana, but he'll drop himself back to kitchen safely. 5 versus 4, we find ourselves coming into the final minute. Advantage G2.
When in doubt, get the shields out is the best way I could describe G2's gameplay sometimes. Here, rather than having Kanto blind peeking onto those pushing in from construction, you've got him sat deep behind the Clash, letting the Clash do all the intel gathering and pinging out what's coming in. And they're just happy to collect drones. There are no drones left for the side of BDS. 60 seconds remain, and they're having to do all of this blind, even more so now that Alems on the Iana has gone down. Citizen could look to play spoiler from inside a big tower if they're not careful, but not pushing aggressively. They will be able to get him back on his feet.
Citizen just looking to move onto that flank now. I think Alems is aware of his presence. Shako's got himself straight into sight. Huge headshot onto Pengu, shutting down the Clash. That could be the difference maker here for BDS. Uno will get a kill onto Renshiro. It all starts to rain in the final seconds, but Alems and Breedy, they close this one out for BDS, and that is a round that was unexpected going in their direction.
Can just sneak his way past the smoke, get into sight, and start bringing fools down left, right, and center. What more do you need from Shaiko? Those are the kinds of plays we live to see. Unseating the Clash, and this is the second time in this series now that I think about it, that BDS have capitalized on some poor communication from the side of G2. Cast your minds back to Alem's ace on the last map, charges his way through Trophy, gets himself to the north, and kills the player playing at the very back inside of Statuary. Those kind of plays don't happen unless there is missing communication on the defender's side to say, watch out, there is someone pushing you across the way. The same thing happened just here, although admittedly Pengu, I think, was stuck no matter what happened. He was either looking towards construction and getting picked off from the south, or he was looking towards the south and getting picked off from the east. Really smart play coming out of Shaiko, though. Sometimes just pressing W on your keyboard and holding down mouse 1, that can be the answer.
Pillars turned into a tomb very, very quickly for Pengu there, as you say, with Shaiko just grabbing the bull by the horns, really, and taking the opportunity to push into sight and grab some map control that was desperately needed. And sometimes that is what is needed on the attack, is just that sort of flash in the pan aggression to just get in there and get themselves a couple of kills. But BDS, they've certainly put themselves in the driving seat here. 4-2, we find them now on the scoreboard heading into round 7. They are on the defense, and I think they might just show G2 how it's done here.
Yellowby is always one of those contentious operators that you see here and people think, do you really want to bring her? And it's like, well, yes, in some ways. She brings a shield along with her. If you don't want to bring the Valkyrie, it can be used for that purpose. You can do a bit of site renovation with the shotgun pistol that you have, and the primary isn't all that bad either. Add in that she is this operator that can drop down those decoys and be off around the map. She can do a lot for you. The one thing I got alerted to not too long ago was the fact that those decoys almost serve as leisure mines. And no, they don't poison you when you step on them. It's the fact that you can always see their outlines across the map. If one disappears, you know someone is pushing from that direction. So stick one in freezer, assume that the attackers are either going to have to walk through it or shoot it. If it disappears, that signal is going off in your head that someone's coming via freezer. Let's deal with that and make sure that we can contest whoever is trying to push through. No. Very versatile operator, basically.
Pengu is bringing the Montagna here, so let's see how much pressure can be applied with that shield. As you've said, Des, it's a little bit like when in doubt, let's bring the shields, but we know how effective Pengu can be, particularly on the Montagna. Often seeing them banned against G2, just because of how effective Pengu can be. And right now he's looking to pressure Bunker. He's going to be feeding information back in. Lems will shut down Kanto with a big opener on the outer, though. Absolutely dashing the Sledge's brains against the wall of construction there. Pengu is now all alone. Virtue is rushing to try and support him and just try and give that essential gun, because obviously while the shield is fully extended, there's nothing that Pengu can do to be aggressive towards those defenders. So you really do need that second man alongside him.
A rough start for Kanto, who's been the opening death 3 times so far in this match, only finding the opening kill once. Now, admittedly, maybe not on the primary entry role, and it's always an ideal target to bring down, given he has frags and the destruction ability from above. Here on this site, not really anything that the Sludge can do. I think it's much more about the grenades. Pengu doing what Pengu does best and doing the tango, dancing around with the Maestro, not quite winning it out yet, tries to go for the down and will find it. 2 kills fly the way of G2. In a commanding position, Bride and Renshiro, the last 2 left standing. They still have these smokes, they can hold them back, but there's 60 seconds left in this round.
Great aggression showed from Pengu there on the Monte. Just timing his attack right once he had Lems cornered and just moving in with the so difficult to challenge against that sort of pistol hip fire and just the RNG that comes out of it. Eventually one of those shots is going to catch you, and ultimately it was the shield that put him down in the melee attack. But we can see right now, big moves coming in from G2 as Citizen gets the kill onto Renshiro. 1 versus 4. It's a matter of time. Citizen it will be to close things out. G2, they take their first attacking round. Can they battle back on Oregon?
So tough when you've got the Monty bearing down on you like that as well. A bit comfortable for Pengu just to walk at whoever he wants to, engage in a 1 versus 1, distract their attention whilst the rest of the team gets busy elsewhere. Good play, and as we always say, one of the best players you're going to see on Monty, not just in EU, but around the world. Really good aggression out of the team. And it gives some hope here that despite losing those 4 defensive rounds back in the first half, you might yet see G2 fight their way back in the second half by taking a good number of attacking rounds themselves.
Not sure about the site choice here, Des. We're going to be heading back to Laundry and Supply. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You've lost the site. Give it another try. But for me, BDS didn't really feel close to that one. It wasn't as if it was sort of down to the wire. G2 dominated them. It came down to a 1 versus 4 at the end. They have a round advantage still. They could really do with this one being 5-3 on the scoreboard after this. Let's not forget those 2 yellow lights up at the top of your screen, just denoting that G2 have already successfully got themselves the first, which was a map advantage coming in through the upper bracket final, and then a second map on the board, which was taken in round 15 all the way to the max of overtime on Villa. So right now, BDS, they don't have any room for mistakes, and having been so close, I just sort of feel like maybe get yourself to a different site. You know, G2 have just come in and really showed a dominance there. Now, Lems, he's taken the clash pick this time around. That is a direct counter to Pengu on the Monty. So that is 1 point in the favour, in the credit of BDS, because that electricity will continue doing damage through Montagna's shield. So if those 2 come face to face, like the immovable object and the unstoppable force, then ultimately, Clash is going to win because the electricity will burn the HP of the Monty. But I'd maybe like to see BDS shift the location for this one.
I like the clash here, and I actually think, and I'll disagree with you, it's very rare we disagree, but I think bringing it along here is the right choice. I'm thinking back to how much trouble Na'Vi gave to G2 on their game on Cafe earlier this season that ended 6-6. Na'Vi's response was clash. Match the Monty wherever he tries to go. You can't walk forward and take space. Normally, you do it up with something like a Goyo, but with that being banned away here, the team are instead resorting to playing behind those goo mines and playing with Bride on the smoke. No surprises there at all. But it's the fact that you stop Monty just charging his way forward and taking ground that rightfully he shouldn't be able to take. And here's Alem doing what I was speaking about that we saw in APAC, pushing out in towards construction, trying to find who's out there, what is the game plan here for the attackers. And it appears for G2, quite a bit of focus on the upstairs, at least initially, at 2 or 3 players playing inside a big tower.
Shaiko just remaining in place at pillars there to lock down the rear stage stairs as it stands. Uno will be looking to push down there anytime soon, I would imagine. Alems has been pushed back from construction into bunker, but Pengu, as you've rightly said, Des, being held at bay for the time being on the Montagne, not being able to push forward as Alems desperately needs to be dealt with before he can do. Now, Citizen, he's looking to just clear out that defender utility. Out goes the breach in charge as well. So the top floor push is sort of working for G2. They are clearing a lot of that defensive utility before they look to build a push here. I'm not sure whether the drop will come through from the hatch or not. Pengu's looking to push forward, and perfect example of the counter that we discussed from the clash here. And Bride opens things up with a shotgun on 2. There we go. 1 kill for Pengu, just showing his mastery with that shield, but will be taken out. It's not going to be enough. Shaiko gets himself a double onto Pengu and Kanto, and that is the construction push completely shut down now. 2 versus 4 as we lost Citizen on the top floor as well. Shaiko triple. Can he get himself 4 on the round? He certainly makes a challenge for it, but Shaiko has come up huge for BDS in this defense.
Absolutely massive for them all, but Virtue with a sudden double kill out of nowhere still means there's another chapter to this round. It's a 1 versus 2. It's the player I spoke about so much. He sits in the background, he plays on the Thermite, but always gives above and beyond what you would come to expect from a support player. Can he do enough in this round to swing it back? He is against Rafal. He is against Renshiro, his equivalent on the other side, and 15 seconds to go. No diffuser on side. This is going to get rough. I don't think he can do it from here.
Moves in to pick up the diffuser, which, as you say, cold on the ground. The goo mine's not going to help. He is surely going to be out of time. He can't even get into sight in time, really. As he does, he steps straight in to the crossfire of Rafal, and they manage to shut down Laundry and Supply. A little bit of a gamble given their round 7 defense there, but having got it successfully on the books now, the reward is all theirs to reap. 5-3 on the scoreboard, and they can head now to another strong site, which is the Dorms site, and they could well hear BDS push themselves onto match point.
It's going to be rough. It's going to be tough, but we saw a very similar story coming out on Villa, let's not forget. So it's so difficult to write either team off at this stage in the game. That last round was interesting because Pengu just thought at some point, you know what, screw it. I'm just pushing through. The aggression is coming out onto that L inside a blue bunker. When over a goo mine was being zapped, everything was in effect to zap his health away from him. So had to try and do something brave and aggressive in trying to push against the clash. Problem is, Shaiko was watching from the north. He knew someone was going to follow behind that Monty with a gun, pick them off, and then picked off Pengu. All too comfortable, but very, very good from BDS to force out the aggression from G2 and play against it perfectly. It's the sort of stuff we saw coming out of Na'Vi in their game back on Cafe, and I'm really glad to see that BDS can adapt.
We see the clash being brought along again from Alems, and I think it's a good choice. Pengu has brought the Montagne. My concern here for G2 is when I look at their operator lineup, they've got the Thatcher, granted, so he can stop the electricity of the shield, but they haven't got anything really to physically disrupt the clash in terms of maybe bringing a Carly, maybe bringing the Zofia would have been my immediate option, so you've at least got that lifeline option, something, anything to effectively allow you to disrupt that clash from stopping the Montagne in his tracks. We'll see how that one plays out. It's certainly a battle for everybody at home to keep an eye on and watch how it is played. We've got Alems downstairs at the minute, so trying to get aggressive and right up into the faces of G2 now. You saw the Maestro just opening up the floor beneath the wall that heads from the game room into Master Closet. The reason for that, if you're not sure, I think our wonderful observer will show us that hole there. That allows an impact trick, so instead of where we would normally see it going over the wall onto a ceiling to try and impact trick an exothermic charge away from the wall, it can actually be done through the floor there. You sort of hit the joists that go into Classroom and it will clear off the exothermic charge on the Closet side, so that's why he's done that.
It can be really tough to land those, though. We've seen a lot of players try and mess up both of the impact grenades being thrown at the floor, and it just doesn't destroy the hard breach on the other side. But this is the more conventional style that I assume to see. In that first half, we saw the small tower takes, we saw the big window takes, a lot of focus out on that side. This one is looking much more conventional, and I think what we expect to see coming out on this map. Somewhat surprised that we aren't seeing two hard breaches being brought out by G2, mind you. This just says things are a little bit one-dimensional. They want to get themselves into this wardrobe wall being opened. Got to be so careful that if both of those get impact rates, suddenly this round becomes impossible for them.
Rafal hiding himself away in the basement at the moment, but on the Wamai, there's a little question maybe to ask there because his magnets are not being deployed upstairs where they could most be needed. So again, if BDS start struggling to that utility game of G2, it is a question to be asked in that choice. There are other operators that could have headed down there. Shaiko on the Jaeger, for example. Once his ADSs are deployed, that's him for the round. Whereas the Wamai, he has a similar gadget. It will catch all those throwable utility items like flashbangs, smoke grenades, frag grenades, but he develops them over time, much like Legion. So he can throw a couple out at the beginning of the round, and then he gains them as time goes on. So by being away from sight, they've basically given up on that utility. Now Renshiro opens up with a great kill onto Citizen through that vertical angle, but Citizen's challenge does allow the closet wall to be opened. Interesting counterplay now, Des. Is that sufficient for the loss of life?
That was really interesting because they knew he would have to angle himself to impact made underneath the door. Citizen was there waiting, couldn't find anything, and once again, it's a shield war taking place. It's a Maestro cam on the wall. Pengu has fallen into their trap. He is not getting out of here alive. He's going to have to go aggressive, but without support, going to get picked off. BDS have mastered the Pengu counter in these last two rounds, and it is wonderful to see.
No direct answer to the clash, as I suggested at the beginning of the round. Yes, we had the Thatcher able to just prevent that shield operating for 10-15 seconds, but it just wasn't enough ultimately. Maestro cam as well, doubling up. Pengu walked into a lot of danger, and look at the situation for G2 now. Alems is just going to hold that door all day long. Diffuser down cold behind him. Virtue gets himself a double, but it doesn't matter because the clock ticks away, and that is going to be round BDS once again. They head on to match point here, and they are looking to get themselves their first map on the board to bring the overall scoreline back to 2-1. Still in favour of G2, but a nice chunk of momentum for BDS if they can take Oregon here.
They win this map, they go into Cafe, where BDS have had a bit of popularity. They've enjoyed playing there, and then Clubhouse waits as the final closing map. Both of those two, I probably couldn't think of a better matchup. Let's not forget, Villa and Oregon are normally maps that these two teams ban away. So you're going to see a much more conventional, I suppose, expected affair coming out of both of them on Cafe and Club. With the way it's going, do I see G2 forcing this into overtime with 3 rounds on the bat? I'm not sure, because as I mentioned in that last round, BDS have found the answer to Pengu. They have dealt with that shield twice ridiculously well, and no doubt Pengu is feeling bloody frustrated right now.
This time, we have the counter to the clash. So Citizen is going to bring along Zofia. That will offer the lifeline stun grenades, which do move Clash's shield away from his face. Now, Rafal is this time going to be picking up the Clash instead of Alems. That's going to free Alems up to play on the Maestro as Renshiro shifts across to the dock. Now, quite often, I'll be interested to see how this one plays out. Renshiro right now is just looking to reinforce Attic, but we'll head back to site, I'd imagine, after that. Interested to see where he plays, because quite often you would have one of your ACOGs at least, so it will either be Alems or Renshiro will be playing inside of the showers. We can see the lines of sight have been opened up into the small tower, and that is going to allow that challenge to come through. There we go, thank you very much, medics. So basically he'll play in and around those lockers. We've got the deployable shield there as well, and it makes it very difficult for G2 to feel comfortable inside of the small tower. Meanwhile, the reason that Attic has been reinforced is to protect the dorms area, so we can see Shaiko's up there just deploying a little bit more utility as well, and they will try to hold on to that vertical control for as long as possible. It's very possible to deny a plant from the dorms room, so G2 putting an early focus on getting in there. Hibana opening up that attic wall, and they are going to pressure this top floor hold.
Alrighty, let's see how they set up for this one. It's all or nothing for G2, and as you mentioned, the top floor take to begin with, not at all surprising. Some teams like to run things like Mirror here. Clearly, not an option, given it is banned away, but teams have run Mirror to hold the upstairs previously, normally in combo with the Clash as you're seeing now, because she can waste so much time. So I'm watching how fast G2 get control of the top floor, force Rafal to drop back through the hatch, which has been opened up yet. Now it's been opened up. I was going to say Brede has got to open it for him, or else he is stuck on this top floor. So glad at least that that's been sorted out. 60 seconds already gone, and they're probably going to try and bully their way through with Pengu on the Monty here. Where it goes from there, G2 are going to have to be very adaptable, though.
The opening couple of kills basically need to go in the favour of G2 here. If not, it will be a death knell, not only for the round, but for the map as well. BDS, they are holding on to the top floor well. 1 minute 30 gone and still no real pressure applied. G2 have got themselves into position very quickly, and then the drones have come out. The information game has started, but they've not really been able to push forward and progress from there. We can see they are still locked into the east side of the map. Virtue and Pengu looking to move through meeting now and just try and put any sort of challenge. Virtue, interestingly, is going to open up this kitchen wall, and this is a slightly unusual approach to this site. Generally, we see the primary push, the primary focus going through the small office side, but I'll be interested to see what angles they can gain from meeting here.
I always call it ghost pressure, right? The sheer fact that wall is now open means you live in fear that someone is going to push through. And when you know that it's Pengu there, you know full well that Amonte is never going to push by himself. He is straight inside the kitchen trying to get some information, feed across to those elsewhere what is going on. As we all know, being sat behind a shield, you're not easy to kill. Saying that, I can't believe the Cast the Curse strike. Shaiko finds Pengu. That's the Monty gone. He is frustrated. 3 rounds in a row. He has been ineffective on this Monty because BDS have got him figured out. It is unbelievable how easy they're making this look. I hope the rest of the world is taking notes.
I don't think you've ever cursed anybody quite as quickly as that before, Des. That was an absolute immediate response. Renshiro with a headshot onto Citizen there. 5 versus 3. BDS sitting pretty right now. And Renshiro gets himself a second on the round. Virtue has played well here on Oregon, getting plenty of frags. 10 and 7 we see him, but they have largely been impactless. Puts a good challenge onto the clash, but it won't be enough, I don't think, as the time ticks away. Did BDS come out with a big win there on Oregon? They, after a lot of sparring, were rocked by a haymaker on Villa, but come back with a huge uppercut of their own on Oregon, getting themselves right back into this fight.
I don't want to say that performance is representative of why G2 don't play on this map, but the fact they were falling back to constantly trying to make the Monty work, their go-to crux almost, suggests that they were struggling. They didn't really know how to deal with what BDS were bringing out against them. BDS looked phenomenal. It isn't going to be a 3-0. It isn't going to be a whitewash like we've seen in other regions, Ace. We get to a map 4. What more could we ask for? And as mentioned, it goes into the more